indeed a highly pleasant job of welcoming a distinguished group of friends of Gujarati Institute of Finance and Taxation. And this is a very rare occasion to get all of them together to deliberate on an issue of much contemporary relevance. You know, I remember Amartya Sen in his book on freedom and whatever. So he says, and this is very important. This is going to be quoted much here, I'm sure. For most humanity, what they have is to sell is his labor power, and his or her welfare quintessentially contingent on the price at which he can or she can sell the labor's power and the price at which she can purchase the necessities of life. And in that context, when we are talking today, for many, for numerous, they are not able to sell their labor power. And this issue has been very much recognized by Indian policymakers, and the world's largest welfare program, what is called MNREGA, with substantial public expenditure, public spending, almost of the order of 1 lakh crore. And urban unemployment is in fact much more acute than rural problem. And as we are told by the development economists of the 50s and 60s, that development is quintessentially a process of transferring disguisedly unemployed labor from the agriculture to more productive sectors. But what we see here today is people who are moving to the urban areas are miserably unemployed. You know, being unemployed in your rural setting is very different from being unemployed in the urban setting. The outcome of the same we have seen during the COVID pandemic. And Kerala is first in many things. And here too, just a few years, 5 years after the introduction of the MNREGA, Kerala government introduced the Ayangali Urban Employment Program. And today we are having a situation wherein almost half a dozen of states is in the process of emulating it. And these initiatives is mostly at the instance of the state, and the national level, this is yet to receive the attention that it deserves. My colleagues here, particularly those who are focusing on public expenditure, felt that we must take up this issue. And I appreciate my colleagues in bringing together a galaxy of experts on this issue. And welcoming them is not an easy task. And to begin with, I just none of them needs introduction. Most of them have done their
easy. Yeah. That makes the task easy.
Yeah. So I'm very happy that our vice chairman, he is not only vice chairman of the State Planning Board, vice chairman of this institute, he found time to be joined with us. And we have two so-called external experts who are visiting first time in this institute. I'm referring to Professor Amitabh Kundu, former Dean of Social Sciences of Jawaharlal Nehru University, and Professor Devi Srivastava, with whom both of them I had a great experience both in professional and personal front. I'm so happy that they joined us during this meeting. And we have Professor Kannan and Professor A.V. Jose. Kannan is one of the most respected distinguished professors. Thank you. And my former director. And Professor Jiju P. Alex is very much concerned about decentralization and employment-related issues in this state. Professor Chathukalam has done a lot of work, apart from decentralization, on the issue of Ayangali employment program itself. Vinoj, you know, he is very much an active person in Gujarati Institute and almost all the PhD external expert, and he helps us in many different ways. And Shuli Vanaja, Dr. Vanaja, I know that you have done a lot of work and we are so happy that you are online with us. And we will look forward to having another occasion to have you with us physically. And I most warmly and with a lot of expectation welcome all of you to this meeting. And I also note the presence of a number of gift friends, and they are, as I always say, they are the strength of this institute. And I'm very happy that many of them have joined here. I also note the presence of Dr. Ravindran, to whom, Professor Kannan, and they all work together. I'm very happy that Dr. Ravindran is also here. I note the presence of our ICS sir, Professor Dr. Mahesh Madhukar is there. And I welcome all of you. A special welcome to those who have joined online. And needless to say, my colleagues and students over here are also welcomed. Over to you,
Thank you.
Professor Vicky.
Thank you. I won't speak. Welcome to all of you. It's really a very, as Joseph has pointed out, the director has pointed out, it's a very distinguished gathering. We're eager to hear your views. We're eager to hear your views on how the lessons from Kerala can form part of a national agenda. And I'll basically be a timekeeper today and listen to and learn from what I hear. May I propose that we go in this order, left to right, top to bottom of the page, and we start with 10 minutes each. Is that all right? So may I request then Professor Amitabh Kundu to begin?
Hello, panelists, colleagues, and young participants. I must say it's a great privilege. Am I audible?
Yeah.
It's a privilege to be here at the Gulati Institute for any event. And today is a very special event, I can see. It's a galaxy of experts. Certainly, it's a big honor and privilege for me to be a part of it. I must tell you, since you said that you're the timekeeper, I haven't spoken for the last 2 months. So there is a great risk of my overshooting. Please stop me as soon as.
I'll tell
Thank
you
you.
in 8 minutes.
You see, Kerala has been a matter of enigma for a large number of development economists. Not now, but for quite some time. I remember as a young student at Delhi School of Economics, Professor Amartya Sen, when he had time to go out of welfare economics, talk about development situation, bringing in regional perspective, he always talked about Kerala, comparing with Sri Lanka, and also in terms of the social capital compared with many of the East European countries. As you know, a state which has somewhat, perhaps on an average over the period of time, below the national per capita SDP, per capita income, having much higher levels of social capital, health, education. Certainly that has been one area of empirical investigation. A state where the growth rate has been reasonably high, but manufacturing sector hasn't picked up. Tertiary sector, I had a project on Malappuram and Kollam, focusing on the minority population where I studied that. And I was really impressed that with low base of manufacturing, how at a young stage of development, the Kerala economy has done so remarkably well. A state focusing on urban issues, because I don't have much time, I'll just take that up. That urban unemployment rate being pretty high, and people are talking about Kerala as an ideal model in terms of employment generation, in terms of right to employment. That's why I've given the title as does Kerala has the right to employment? The focus on urban missions. You see, Kerala is a very special case. You think about this urban level. It was just 27% in 2001, even less than that. And suddenly in 2011 census it doubled. It's a matter of perception, matter of Directorate of Census Operations deciding how do you define? It's not only difficult for an individual to say where urban limit is beginning and rural is starting. Even for the Directorate of Census Operation, it's a matter of considerable discretion. Most balanced urban structure is perhaps in the state of Kerala compared to extreme cases of Maharashtra and West Bengal. So that is something which is interesting. And if I come to this Gulati Institute, I have come with a lot of questions than specific answers. But quickly, let me tell you 2 or 3 things about urban unemployment rate, which strikes me on the basis of my research work. Urban unemployment rate has always been at the national level and also for the state of Kerala, as Dr. Joseph mentioned, much higher than, I just have 2 or 3 slides, don't worry. You see that the top one is for the youth unemployment rate. The bottom one is for rural unemployment rate. And the last point you can leave it because that is from CMIE data, which is not strictly comparable. But rest of it, I think, fairly comparable, although there have been questions raised about the 2017-18 unemployment rate. But you do find that the Kerala's unemployment rate is higher than this national average figure. I didn't want to bring that picture in. The top one is for the youth unemployment. Then we have the women unemployment, then urban unemployment, and the lowest is the rural unemployment. How come, despite urban unemployment rate being so high, it has not been the subject of research and also subject of policy concern? I was asking myself, one reason could be the urban poverty level is less than the rural areas. Urban per capita expenditure is higher than the rural areas. So you think that, well, people are not really at the point of starvation, although unemployment rate is high. That could be one reason. Secondly, when you look at the overall poverty figure, you find at least 50 to 60% of the urban poverty are transient, which means they are below poverty line for some time of the year and rest of the time they are out of it. So that again really relieves the burden. If there are people who are permanently below poverty line for the whole year or year after year, then it's a much more serious matter. Empirically also, there are 2 interesting points I want to mention about urban poverty and rural poverty. If you take rural poverty, take the state level data, and you find that the rural poverty responds very strongly to the rural development indicators. Labor productivity, beckerization, agricultural diversification in the rural economy. You find the moment I'm roughly taking 7, 8 indicators. You take that, you improve rural development indicators, you find rural poverty going down. The same thing is not true for urban areas. Take indicators of urban development, manufacturing sector, land prices. There are many, again, took 12 indicators. You find that urban development being higher in terms of these indicators does not necessarily result in reduction in urban poverty or reduction in urban unemployment, which is in the rural context, this happens that you have rural development coming up, rural employment rate goes up, rural unemployment rate goes down, poverty also goes down. In urban cases, there are states and also at the district level, I did some analysis taking multidimensional poverty. You find that urban development goes up, urban unemployment rate may go up or go down. There are states, the high level of urban development, and you find unemployment rate is very high and unemployment rate is very low. So unemployment rate and poverty rate can be very high in the highly urbanized state because of migrants coming in, because of many factors. So urban poverty and urban unemployment rate can be high because of urbanization, industrialization, or it can be in the absence of that. So that's much more complex. You just can't push up urban development and hope that this will disappear. That is one complexity which I want to mention. I know I'm exhausting 10 minutes, but I want to mention 2 more points quickly. One is that does Kerala really have right to employment? What is having right to employment? I did some work for the UNESCO. Amartya Sen makes a distinction between right and meta right. You see, I don't need, all of you can read it. I can't read it from there. I can only read it from here. You see, you can't say a state which has one of the highest rate of unemployment is ensuring right to work for everyone. Although we know that many of the employment programs, particularly wage employment programs, which is the basic thrust in the employment programs in Kerala, certainly ensures, gives much greater confidence to the labor force. But at the same time, unemployment rate being very high, maybe because of trade union labor being better organized. How do you say that Kerala is at a higher level of ensuring right to work? Amartya Sen says, look, there is something called right and something called meta right. When you have right, that means you're being denied something is justiciable offense. If you die of starvation, this is an offense on the part of somebody. There has to be an inquiry. Even now, if there's a death due to starvation, this has to be recorded separately and somebody has to be found responsible for it. Whereas dying of cholera or COVID-19 is not a justiciable offense. But meta right means that you're entitled. Guarantee is given to everyone, but individual level, there may be deficits. So basically, I would like to argue that you can't look at right to work as an absolute term, but as a meta right, whereas there's a guarantee for everyone to do it, but many individuals may find it difficult to access that because of capabilities not being there. Entitlement is there, but capabilities are not there. I just quickly want to read out some of the brilliant statements by the international experts on legal theorists and human rights activists. Upendra Bakshi, I'll just take 1.5 minutes more. Upendra Bakshi talks about rights being inscriptions of struggle. The idea of human rights is never a finished product. It is always under construction, always contested, always subject to revision and expansion. Hilary Charlesworth and Chicknin says human rights are not fixed monuments, but changing practices subject to continual critique and reconstruction. Well, everybody is saying the same thing, that you don't judge a state or a country on the basis of what actually is there, but the processes and the overall entitlement. There can be deficits. It is only in that context you can say that, yes, you have to look at different states in terms of the right to employment. Final point, when I compared NULM, National Urban Livelihood Mission, which is the central mission of the central government, and the programs of Kerala government, which has been linked with the other programs, there is a much greater convergence. I do find that in terms of this institution, in terms of overall national state level guarantee, there are much slightly higher level of confidence among the workers in getting employment and with some amount of social security. Whereas the thrust of the NULM, although it has made a major project, now it is entering the second phase in terms of providing self-employment, in terms of providing infrastructural support, in terms of self-help groups. There's a tremendous work which has been done. But in the 3 parameters of, as I said, right to employment, I do find that Kerala's performance would be somewhat better, although, as I said, that the national level for quite some time, urban unemployment rate in Kerala has been quite high, much higher than the national level. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry for
No,
the
not at all,
last
not
2
at all.
minutes.
It's no pleasant duty to be doing what I'm doing. Thank you for that very enlightening and short presentation. May I request Professor Ravi Srivastava? Mike.
Thanks, VK, for inviting me to speak, and thanks to GIFT for inviting me. I've been able to come to Kerala and to GIFT after a long gap. And it's very useful to use this occasion to be able to reflect on Urban Employment Guarantee Program, because what I'm going to say is more by way of reflection, more by way of unanswered questions, but at the same time raising some propositions. I'll begin with the broad area where Professor Kundu started out, which is to basically speak about, because if you're contextualizing urban employment guarantee, it has to be contextualized in by considering the nature of unemployment or unemployment in urban areas, but unemployment more generally. Recently, I did an exercise where I looked at the data from 2011 onwards up to 23-24. And what we did was we looked at underemployment very closely. So we defined benchmark employment. If somebody had 5 days of work in a week, then we described the person as being fully employed. Otherwise, if he did not even have 5 days of work, we spoke of the person as being underemployed. And then we worked out the days of underemployment in the country, converted it to persons equivalent who are unemployed, and recalculated the unemployment rate. Because normally what we talk when we talk about unemployment, we talk about basically open unemployment. We don't talk about underemployment in the country. This becomes very important in the context of the fact that our employment guarantee schemes, including NREGS, is actually catering to underemployed individuals, not to unemployed individuals. And I'll say a little more about this. So basically what we found was that out of roughly 550 million people, 217 million people, workers, were underemployed in the country. They did not even have 5 days of work. This worked out to 61.5 million fully unemployment equivalent persons. And this then worked out to 11.36% unemployment rate. So the underemployment equivalent of unemployment rate was 11.36%. Open unemployment was 5%. So the total unemployment rate in this country, if you actually add the burden of underemployment, was 16.35%. Underemployment and unemployment together are as high or almost as high in the urban areas as in the rural areas. I'm not going to consider the specificity of Kerala because in Kerala, open employment is higher. So that's a different case. And Professor Kundu has again said something about it. So with such high rates of unemployment and underemployment, the case for having an employment guarantee program, which was made many years ago, has always been a very strong case. And we know what NREGA has been able to do, what MG NREGA has been able to do in the last few years, despite all the constraints and the way it has been implemented in the country as a supply-driven program. It has still provided employment to about 8 crore people, roughly about 5.45 crore households on average, with an average budget of around 86,000 crores, although the amount of disbursement has been around 60,000 crores. So MNREGA has done a lot to stabilize levels of employment and provide reservation wages in the rural areas despite. A similar very strong case needs to be made and has been made for an employment guarantee program. But having said this, we have to recognize the difference between the nature of rural unemployment oblique underemployment and urban employment oblique underemployment. In the rural areas, underemployment is largely a seasonal and cyclical phenomena. So you can identify periods of the year when people will be sitting idle. And then there will be years when there is a bad crop or when there is a drought, when these periods will grow. And this is the time when marginal cultivators, small cultivators, join the labor force along with the landless laborers and work on MNREGA sites. In the urban areas, the problem of underemployment is more chronic. It is not a seasonal problem. It is spread for self-employed workers and women workers who form a higher proportion than their share in the workforce. It is a problem which is generally spread through the years. It may vary with the kind of industry they're involved with, but it varies through the year. Therefore, there is not there are no seasonal peaks in which a certain kind of public works or works can be provided. This has in my view, this is important implications for work which needs to be designed. First of all, a lot in the urban areas, in the rural areas, so the self-employed, underemployed individuals are 4 times the casual underemployed individuals, the amount of work. But in urban areas, the proportion of self-employed employment in underemployment is in fact even higher compared to casual workers. So you are actually dealing with two problems, that specifically you will be dealing with a class of workers who are self-employed, and secondly, you will be providing them some kind of work which will be supplementary to their self-employment. So I think this is something which needs to be taken into account. Now, unemployment, by the way, is very different. And as I have shown, we have shown in the India Employment Report 2025, also in an article which I wrote in EPW, 86% of open unemployment among the youth in India belongs to the category of youth who have been educated for secondary up to secondary level or beyond. Their aspirations and the nature of jobs that they seek are very different. They are primarily not unskilled manual jobs. So again, the kind of employment guarantee programs which we are trying to design is not really will not really address that kind of employment problem. The second issue which we actually need to consider in much great detail, and again, this should be considered along with the specific programs that we have in country, when we consider them, is the question of urban governance. Urban governance is hugely fragmented between the urban local bodies and between parastatals and other state agencies. So the urban local bodies have typically very low capacity. The possibility of self-organization also. Kerala is different, and of course, Odisha has a model which builds on Mission Shakti. But in general, the degree of community-based organizations, the density of community-based organizations is also fairly low in urban areas. So banking on them is also not a very easy job. Now, if you look at urban employment guarantee programs, you see when NREGA was designed in 2005, we had over 3 decades of experience with employment programs, more generally rural employment programs. And we also had more than 3 decades of experience with an employment guarantee program in Maharashtra. So there is a lot of lessons which could have been learned and built into NREGA. Some of them were actually built into the program. Some were never built into the program, but a lot of lessons. Now with urban employment, we have very limited experience, and very limited set of proposals have come forward in the past. The government of India has had programs which mainly have promoted self-employment, and it continues to be the case. The government of India programs are self-employment promoting. So basically what we have is essentially about 4 years of experience. Iron Kali is an older program, dates back to 2010, but otherwise most of our programs are 4 years old. And they differ in 3 major aspects. One, their reliance on urban local bodies for delivery of these programs, reliance on supplementary institutions or agencies, and the extent to which they rely on community-based organizations. So these are specific differential features, and only a few of these programs involve legal guarantees. The strongest legal guarantee is invoked in the Rajasthan program. And here you can see the difference also, that the largest amount of employment generation which has occurred and the largest budget dedicated to employment guarantee, urban employment guarantee, is in Rajasthan. It's close to half compared to all the states when they're taken together. So one thing is very clear, that a dedicated program which is guarantee based will definitely work better than programs which are only scheme based. However, even the states which have these programs have very meager and small programs. I mean, the case of Kerala is there. I would love to know more what have been the major constraints in expanding the budget of these programs. But finally, just 1 minute, I believe that there's this question of national versus state programs. State programs have been launched. 6 or 7 states have these programs, some with a legal guarantee, some without a legal guarantee. I think there's a very strong case for envisaging a national program. But I'm not very sure what shape this national program should take. Whether this national program should allow flexibility of states to develop program and should fund them on a particular basis, let's say 60-40 or whatever basis. So therefore, the states have more agency in developing the program and can follow different models. Or should the national program actually have a more uniform ambit, as has occurred in the NREGA program? The final issue which concerns GIFT is, of course, the financial allocation for these programs. Right now, it is just 2,000 crores in total compared to 86,000 crores in NREGA. I think the Azim Premji University had estimated something like 1.7, 1.8% of GDP, which is extraordinarily high, which would be about 6 to 7 times the Manrega budget. So I don't think, given that we still don't know the demand side for an urban employment guarantee program, I think we need an open-ended program where the center is willing to fund employment guarantee programs and willing to commit itself to the funds which are required by states on a certain basis. That, I believe, should be the way we should be actually pushing for. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the very interesting and thought-provoking presentation. Thank you. Professor K.P. Kannan.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Professor Joseph and other faculty members for organizing this seminar. I think two of our panel colleagues have already spoken about the national level issues that pertain to urban employment guarantee. First of all, let me say that I'm in full agreement with them that there is need for a national urban employment guarantee. And I'm sure Ravi and Dr. Ravindran remember that we had discussed this and made it a recommendation in the National Commission for Unorganized Sector, that report. Because of, as he said, the various reasons. It's not only because we have unemployment and underemployment, we also have a bigger problem of working poor. You may be working and yet you are not able to come out of the poverty. So that really focuses the attention on the wage question. I think we need to discuss that in the national context. It's not enough to provide employment as in the case of NREG, but at rupees in Kerala, it is 325 rupees. And you can imagine who will come in Kerala to work for 325 rupees. And in many other states now, except perhaps very poor states, where the alternative opportunities are very little. So the wage question remains. The national government of India doesn't have a statutory national minimum wage, despite recommendations by various committees and commissions, including their own committee on minimum wages. But that's a separate issue. Let me straight come to the exploring lessons from Kerala's national agenda. The only document that I found interesting to understand this is Jose Thatukulam's EPW paper, which is quite comprehensive and raises important issues. I'm sure he's going to speak about that, but I want to pick a few things from his paper and highlight a few issues. First of all, urban here for the Yankali scheme means statutory urban areas, urban towns, not census towns. So it doesn't cover 48% of the population. It covers only the 26, 27% under statutory urban areas. That's around 22 lakhs households. The job card issued is 2.3 lakh households. That may be a reflection, which is around 10%. And I would imagine there is hardly any household in Kerala who can be labeled as poor beyond 10%. It will be much less than 10%. Therefore, the question of reservation wage, the minimum wage, comes very important. You won't get people to work unless it is, if not equal to, but closer to the market wage. And the work provided is for 80% of this 2.3 lakh, which comes to around 1.8 lakh. The wage rate is the same as the MGNRA wage rate, which is 300 and something at the moment. Very interestingly, women job cards are 89%. And this is a typical Kerala situation. For any unskilled public employment work program, you will not get men to come and take up the work unless the wage rate is market wage rate. The men's market wage rate for unskilled labor in Trivandrum that we all know is 1,000 rupees. And if you are a little more skilled, like masons, it will be 1,200 rupees. So that's the difference between the public employment work wage and the actual market wage. That's why women are mostly enrolled in this job card scheme. And most women are enrolled thanks to the Kudumbashree. So you have a well-knit organizational system. So it's easy to enroll them, which is very good. But then what happens? 100 days are promised under this for those who are holding these job cards. But unless you have work projects to get people to work on that, it's very difficult to convert their right into actual work. Very little um, thinking, it seems, have gone into the planning and design and planning of this program. And Jose is here, Jose Chatukalam, not our senior Jose. There's another Jose is here. And he says very tellingly, and I found all his empirical data supports that. He says, although the Ayangali Urban Employment Guarantee was claimed to be on par with MGNREGS, the poor design and implementation along with the political and administrative apathy has dented its popularity and spoiled its potential to some extent. Now, one important empirical issue in this, which supports this statement, is that for these people with the job cards, what the government has done is, for lack of proper planning and keeping a shelf of projects, they have aligned the Ayangali program scheme with the Prime Minister's Awas Yojana program, which is now under the Life Mission in Kerala with state government contributions and all that. So if you are a beneficiary of a house assistance scheme, then under the Ayangali scheme, you are given an amount equal to 90 days of wages. So 90 into 325 rupees or something, which will come to 25,250 rupees. 4 lakh rupees is the assistance to the PMAY scheme, which is 2.5 on the central government. The government of Kerala adds to it. So what really it becomes is 6% of this 4 lakh rupee housing assistance comes from the Ayangali scheme. And that is given assuming that you have worked on it for 90 days at this NREG wage rate. In practical terms, and I know a domestic help has done this, she gets this money, but she cannot do the construction work, foundation. Unless you finish each stage, you don't get the money also. So she gets the construction workers to do it. They demand 1,000 rupees. So 25,250 rupees is given to 25 man days of work. But in record, it will be given as 90 days of work. So then only you need to give another 10 days to make it 100. Now, I have no problem with convergence. I have no problem with convergence. But there is a wage issue here that in practice reduces the number of days of work. And the work is not performed by the beneficiary for various reasons. They have other things to do and it goes outside. Now, if you take, there is an interesting table in his article that overall for 11 years now it has been going on, 360 crore rupees is allocated in the budget. But the actual allotment when the program department gets it, 221 crores, that is 62% only. And of this 62%, only 200 crores, that is 90% is spent. And providing the number of days of work is 77.5 lakh for 11 years, which works out to 7 lakh person days of employment. And if you divide this by 1,000 rupees wage rate, you will get 7,000 persons have been given work per year. 7,000 persons. If you reduce that wage rate, you may get more. So that's probably the reason why he said it has not really made any dent into the problem. The question that I have before me, along, taking on from the earlier our discussions on Kerala's development challenges, that in Kerala, increasingly the unemployment is educated unemployment. So unskilled unemployment is very little. Unemployment. But if you look at underutilization of labor, that means people are not reporting that they are seeking work, but they don't have work. And it is mostly under the category of the less educated, less than secondary, because there is no institutional mechanism for them to seek work, unlike the educated category. In fact, only 1% of them are really, okay, I will take another 2 minutes. Only 1% of them are really reporting to be seeking work. So that's a very interesting thing. So you will get only women for unskilled work in public works, and you are getting them for a very low wage now because it is given as subsidy on other schemes. So the real market wage, the men's market wage is 1,000, the women's will be about 2/3 of that or maybe 60% of that. So there is a wage question. But most of the unskilled manual work in Kerala is performed by migrant labor. But this scheme is only for people who are permanently settled in Kerala. So basically there is a issue of, exclusion of the migrant workers, but migrant workers come only with work or for work. So in a way, that aspect has also to be keep in mind. Are there not many other opportunities in the urban space for creating public work? Yes, but it has to be regular, durable employment at a reasonable wage. Kerala's declared minimum wage rate is 600 rupees. But the government itself is giving 300 rupees to ASHA workers or Anganwadi workers or the people who are preparing meals for the children. And I was astounded to read that the ratio is you have one person in a school for every 500 students. I just can't imagine how can one person prepare a lunch for 500 children. So what they do is they have assistants, they share their wages with somebody who is a relative or somebody who is known to them. So there are areas where in Kerala with a high wage rate economy, we have islands of very low wage rate, high exploiting kind of things. If only we could bring some of these durable employment opportunities into the Ayangali and make it into a very revised, a little more ambitious program.
Thank you very much for that, for a recommendatory talk. Very useful. Professor A.V. Jose.
Thank you, Chair. At least Dr. V.K. Ramachandran should know that I'm not a professor anyway. That
But you are here, no? You are a professor.
I know that.
At GIFT, you are a professor.
I'm a visiting
Professor.
No, it's not
Yeah.
a professorial job. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. No, let me not take away my time. I start with some data, boring as usual, for the year 2023-24, drawn from the PLFS and the Kerala Economic Review concerning the nature and scale of unemployment in Kerala and in India as a whole. We have had our speakers referring to that. It's partly my attempt, which they have also done, to examine the myth that employment creation programs in urban areas are addressed to the unemployed, and specifically the Ayangali Employment Guarantee Scheme of Kerala. In 2023-24, the average unemployment rate in urban areas for labor force aged 15 years plus was 4.2% for men and 10.9% for women. The corresponding all India rates were 4.4 and 7.1, not much different. The rates are higher in rural Kerala, as was mentioned, but the converse is true of India as a whole, where urban unemployment rates are higher. The average unemployment rate is high both in urban and rural areas, primarily due to the significantly, as again, a lot of our, Professor Kundu, Kannan, and Ravi Srivastava, they all pointed it out, is because of the very high rates of unemployment among the educated people who together pull up the rates. And the employment creation in Kerala, or for that reason, any other state, it's not availed of by people at the lower end of the skills with very high rates of unemployment among them, because people with education up to the illiterates and those up to secondary school have relatively much lower rates of unemployment compared to the educated. The latter altogether pull up the rates. The point, the lesson I draw from these is that the presumed beneficiaries of employment guarantee scheme, both in urban and rural areas, are not the educated workers, but those at the lower end of the skill ladder where unemployment rates are not very high. People who avail themselves of employment guarantee schemes are often engaged in self-employment and home-based work, and they don't offer for wage employment outside the household. Still, this is all about women. Their wages, as Kannan pointed out, are absolutely low, sort of 50% of what's being offered to men. And it goes with another paradox. We have something like 2.5 million migrant workers, most of them men, who would gravitate to the state for availing themselves of twice the wage rate prevailing for men. And this is something which needs to be addressed. Drawing more women into paid work makes abundant sense, which ought to receive more attention. But then please pardon my indiscretion for saying that early employment program is probably not the best way of dealing with that situation. Let me share some misgivings. Here are some additional figures, which will be the final set for you. Look at the allocation of resources and utilization of resources for the Iyengali scheme in 2023-24. Just about 2/3 of the allocation of 1.5 billion rupees was utilized. The scheme created 2.69 million man days of work for 69,000 workers, equivalent to approximately 39 days per worker. Women accounted for 93% of the person days.
23,
The utilized
23, 24?
23,
23, 24.
23, 24. The utilization ratio of programs in Kerala has always been low. It increased in recent years, of course, which I don't go into. This is in sharp contrast with the other flagship program, which is the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Scheme, for which the allocation exceeded, the utilization exceeded the original allocation. This resulted in approximately, again for 23-24, approximately 100 million person days of work involving 3.97 million households, each one having less than 25 days of work per household. Close to here again, 90% of the women availed themselves of the wage employment opportunity. What constrained the expansion of the NREGA was the allocation of resources and not utilization. Already, as you know, the funds are being slashed at the national level for the employment creation programs, and they're likely to continue in the years to come. Are there lessons to be learned from Kerala's experience in implementing the urban employment schemes? Is there a compelling case for emulating them in other states, as argued by the UNDP and other media influencers? Let's consider another myth discussed in policy circles, that rural employment creation schemes in India are social protection measures. By no stretch of imagination, let me say, can those wages paid for emergency employment creation programs can become part of a social security package. Social security essentially means payment for your old age income security and health care at the time when you stop being active in the labor force. Daily wages do not fit into that straight jacket. Please make no mistake. The case for adopting employment creation as a practical means of eradicating poverty and providing social protection is nonetheless appealing, but it warrants a thorough review by students of development economics. Ideally, we should aim to generate employment as part of a broader development strategy, a rural development strategy, a point that was very passionately argued by Professor K.N. Raj way back in 1956 in his famous Cairo lectures. Raj had challenged the prevailing orthodoxy of that time, advanced by Nobel Peace Prize laureates Ragnar Nerz and Arthur Lewis, that there were unlimited supplies of labor in rural India, which could be transferred to urban locations at zero marginal cost for use in employment creation, for asset accumulation. And many of our policymakers are still prisoners of that idea. And Raj argued forcefully that we cannot just siphon off labor from rural areas. Instead, the social organization of work in the countryside must change, converting the latent, disguised unemployment, Kannan pointed it out, into open unemployment, first open unemployment, so that paid work becomes attractive, drawing more people into labor markets. Only through targeted programs of public investment in infrastructure, such as canals, irrigation tanks, transport networks, schools, health centers, public spaces, and the environment, can we alter the social organization of work, raise the productivity of labor, and increase the price of labor beyond the subsistence margins. I come back to the last point. There is a case for rethinking with a lot more people's participation in the design and implementation of the rural development projects, which hopefully will change the scenario, make labor far more productive, at least stop this process of driving them due to destitution to the urban areas where we try to take up employment creation programs for them. This should not be the strategy to be pursued. Thank you.
Thank you for that change of focus, and thank you. I just want it takes nothing away from the point you were making, but the numbers I have are slightly different. 24, 25. The allocation.
The 24, 25.
Yeah,
the allocation figures have not come. It's only up to September.
As on.
Yeah. 24.
If I may, let it. If I'm. It's about 165 crores.
Yeah.
It was 165 the allocation, but it's already 97% of utilization. I mean, this year when there is money. Would have implied.
You got the latest figures.
Yeah.
I'm dealing.
I'm
with
just saying
what
that it doesn't take away from your overall argument. But as a matter of fact, 98% of it was utilized when it was made available. Yeah.
Utilization,
Yeah,
we are
exactly.
pretty good, except in urban areas. We are trying to
I'm
do.
talking only about Ayangali. I'm
Huh?
talking about Ayangali. So it's not, I mean, it doesn't take away from your overall argument, which I'm.
And then Ayangali, it increased to
I'm-
165
I'm happy
crores.
to agree
Yes,
with the
you're
idea of
right.
this as a solution to poverty of the last resort.
We still have a problem with bureaucratic
but-
solutions to that.
Sure.
And that's
But,
it.
but I'm just telling you that it does when that in a situation like this, when the money was forthcoming, it was picked. I mean, it was taken up. Anyway,
That I don't
Now,
deny.
may I-
We eminently utilize the
no,
resources
yeah.
that were available. That's no dispute about it,
Yeah.
except in urban Ayangali. Yes, it did not exceed 60.
Yeah, this time it's
Fine.
actually hit 98. But that I don't think that also takes away from your argument, but need not. Professor Jujupi Alex, who's
So
handling.
in fact, I was about to explain the issues that we have been facing during the planning and implementation of this program. And most of these issues have already been flagged by Professor Jose and also Professor Kannan. I would like to reflect on how the entire program is being implemented in Kerala. We also come across such issues. We also know that this is not going to be adequate, and we have to have much more income bearing and more profitable employment opportunities, and the wage rate issues are there. But still, as a flagship program, which was initiated by for the first time in the country, this has been appreciated across the country. But the mechanisms by which this is being implemented will have to be improved, not only in terms of the wage rate, which is very evident, and also in terms of how this could be administered in the field. I have a few observations. In fact, this is modeled after the MGNREGS. The entire Iyengali program, we have not gone for any kind of improvisation, considering the characteristics of the urban centers in the state. So that is one inherent issue which has affected the efficacy of implementation of this program. That is the first thing. And secondly, the prerequisites of this program is basically planning. And as we see in the MGNREGS, we may have to have a real-time labor budget, which has to be prepared in consultation with many stakeholders, which is not happening properly. And there are several centrally sponsored schemes which can be integrated into this program. That also is not being attempted. And the exclusive mechanism for administration of this program, I would say, is not very efficient. It's still with the Urban Affairs Department, and it has got a small cell of bureaucrats who are doing this. And I do not know whether they have been effectively doing the whole monitoring process. And in fact, even in the planning board, we do not get an objective review of how this is being done every year. So we have also, maybe we can see how the money is being spent. There are almost about 100 odd items which can be works which can be included in the Iyengali Employment Guarantee Program. But only a very few activities are being actually done by them. And major portion is in housing, particularly in construction, that is, as you said, PMAY urban. And rest of the thing is in renovation of streams and tree planting, fallow land, and all that. We are very, very, very minimal. So most of these works which can be given to the Iyengali program are not being utilized by the beneficiaries of this program. And also there are issues regarding, say, for example, how the, as I said, NULM is integrated with this program. We don't have any mechanism as of now to integrate National Urban Livelihood Program with this, even though we say that Kudumbashree is a very important presence as far as in Kerala is concerned, but their presence in the urban areas, particularly the NULM activities, are not organically linked with the Iyengali Employment Guarantee Program. So what I would, anyways, I'm not going to repeat the issues that you have flagged because most of them I have also noted down. See, we have to think of an entire, I would say, an altogether new approach towards Iyengali program. We have to have more skilled laborers. We can think of mechanization of these labor groups, much more organization and formalization of these groups, and how these groups could be integrated with activities that are prescribed by the central government, particularly in centrally sponsored schemes like urban agglomeration, then the tied grants of the Finance Commission, and also several other programs that the state government has initiated. And there is large scope of skilling and mechanization, which is going to improve the visibility and efficiency of these groups. And also there are new areas coming up. Say, for example, palliative care, as you said, the care economy and kind of things wherein these people could be employed. And the larger question is whether they can be retained in this program, whether we can attract more number of people. If at all we want to continue this program, then the issue of wage will have to be addressed properly. So I think I have got only this much to say because all these issues we have also taken into consideration. We have been having some deliberations on as to how to improve this program. And the figures, as you said, it had a momentum since 2017-18. Since 2017-18, the expenditure has increased. And the year in which it was conceived, it was almost nil. And in the following years, particularly from 2011 to 2016-17, it has been very minimal. In fact, just for the namesake, there was a program and absolutely no money was allotted and absolutely no expenditure as well. But now it has improved, and the next year, I mean, this current year, we have earmarked almost about 180 crores for this program, anticipating that, and then we hope that the entire money will be spent. And it is at an increased wage rate, and now it is 369 also. So maybe man days would be less on a 369, yeah, 369, not 330, 369. 369. Yeah, 33 to 369. 369. So I think we have to have a serious look, and we are also in the process of having an objective review of this program and how people have availed it and how the administration has managed the whole program and what are the different issues that we will have to address in the coming years. Thank you.
Sir. Thank you very much, Professor Juju. Professor Jose Jathapulam.
Yeah, somebody.
What would you like? Then you'd like the.
My room? Yeah, please. Can you maybe stop it?
Yes, I'll tell you. I'll tell you.
Okay, okay. This is the mic. Yeah. Yeah, respected chairman and dear friends. I will just talk on the policy aspects, and very particularly, while I make it clear that I got that the Kerala State Planning Board from the vice chairman and the Professor Biju Alex also mentioned that they're seriously thinking in that line, so that some kind of a thought in that particular issue there, the policy frame for a urban wage employment guarantee scheme in India. You see, there is actually a very urgent need and high demand. And I think there is, yeah. Okay. So there is no need for further giving more explanation on this particular issue. We all know that there 68% of the world population, what is happening in the 60s in 250. And despite many benefits of urbanization, the important point is that it has potential negative externalities as far as the urbanization is concerned. That is a very crucial issue. And unemployment crisis, it is already mentioned here, particularly in the urban areas and the Kerala context, educated unemployment. Yeah. You see, the negative externalities may further aggravate the situation. That is what there is a chance for that. My point is that there is a lack of capacity and for planned and regulated urbanization as far as the Indian cities are concerned. And very particularly, we have to strengthen the capacity of the urban local government, the design, the governance structure, and the functionaries, and related issues in and around the urban local government. The question is that how to minimize the potential negative externalities of the urbanization. Yeah. See, there are certain endeavors for policymakers to maximize this benefit of urbanization and minimize the externalities. I will come to that. You see, the point is that endeavors for policymakers in framing the urban wage employment guarantee scheme, my submission is that there is just not for giving some employment to here and there. Look into that the Habitat 1 highlights the right to adequate housing and emphasized the need for shift in governance and planning paradigm to prevent the the issues of inequalities in the cities. Take the Habitat 2, 1996, adequate housing to all, and viable human settlement in a changing world. Again, in 2016, there is a landmark, adopted the new urban agenda. In that context, what happened? Making cities and urban settlement inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. This is what the local leaders and stakeholders to confront the adverse impact of urbanization. That is also a very crucial issue as far as when we think about the urban guarantee scheme. The employment guarantee scheme in that sense, and not only that, the other global policy framework and commitment in framing the urban wage employment guarantee scheme is also very important. I'm not going to dig in that there. We have the disaster risk reduction. We have to take it serious. Paris Climate Agreement. Cities consume more than 70% of the global energy related to GHG emission. That also we have to think very seriously. Unlike between the wage employment and self-employment, the point is that there should be a linkage on certain level. My point is that there, you see, when the wage employment, it should lead to some kind of upgradation and finally it go to a kind of a self-employment. But it don't take place in the reverse model in the sense that when you employ self-employment kind of things, when you plant an employment scheme, there is a tendency for that there some amount of the self-employed sections also may jump into the wage employment. That is what is happening in the Kerala context. In some of the villages, what happened in the rural areas, we can see that there, because of the MGNREGA, a self-employed women feel that there it is extremely difficult for her to generate a profit out of that as petty business, 300 plus. Then she feel that they're okay. Instead of self-employment, I can think about going for MGNREGA. That kind of a trend is taking place in Kerala. That is what I mentioned, this particular issue as far as this is concerned. Employment guarantee scheme, not only that, we have to think on certain issues of the garden city. There are a lot of movements as far as the urbanization are concerned. We have smart cities, smart growth. You see, we have eco-urbanism, sustainable urbanization. We have also neighborhood planning movement, right to the cities. These kind of movements, these kind of right-based, the activist movement in the cities, in the urban areas, also we have to take into consideration while preparing a wage employment scheme as far as the urban area is concerned. It should aim to minimize the negative externalities underlying of urbanization and make cities more desirable place for human to live and prosper. This should be the aim as far as this scheme is concerned. This is there. When we analyze that there, the Iyengali labor employment scheme, these kind of issues are not yet implanted in that particular scheme. See, wage employment scheme, as far as India is concerned, it is not new. India has a long history of urban wage employment scheme, not a kind of a guaranteed one, not a fully scheme, but there are a number of schemes. I'm not breaking into that there. There are a number of schemes. In that schemes, what happened, there is some element of wage employment was there very much. That is what I mentioned, that there we have a long history, but that history is very limited. These are some kind of issues are there, schemes there. Okay, this is what there as far as these schemes are concerned. So the point is that there how all the wage employment schemes in India had failed because of a number of reasons. Manual labor was replaced by machines in many cases because of the local pressure from the political leaders, that kind of action taken place. Asset creation was overset at the cost of employment generation. It's a light of some kind of a conflict between asset generation, asset creation, and the employment generation. Still, that kind of issues are there very much. Inability The labor component was only limited. Again, it was relaxed to because of local pressure. I already mentioned that there. And all the above mentioned, the employment guarantee, employment scheme in the urban areas has reduced into a kind of a construction activity. That is what happened, place. Lack of capacity for planned and regulated urbanization, lack of perspective for policy experts, and they have taken these schemes only as a kind of just giving certain amount of employment generations there, and poor strategy to minimize the negative externalities again. And some suggestive model, Jean Rees developed a model, it is known as decentralized urban employment model, urban employment and training. It is already there in the literature. Okay, I will take it on that one. Yeah. The Asim Branchi University professor Hafiz Rizas already mentioned that there are Asim Branch University, they made some kind of issues that there. And in the 2090 general election, there is actually a manifesto is also declared by the opposition parties on this particular scheme. And we all feel that there are, 9 states in the country, and they have a very limited, it may be a limited, but there are 9 states. They are running the wage employment schemes at different levels. And Tripura is the first, not in Kerala, in that the Tripura is the first state introduced the guaranteed scheme. Yeah, achievements of the Iyengali scheme, I'm not making on that particular. This is actually the achievement of the scheme, the fund outlay and number of person days. I have a table on that. I see, by conclusion, I would like to say that the all existing urban wage employment scheme, guarantee scheme, in the earlier days as a part of a limited one, and the 9 states also, we have seen that there in the state have framed in a very narrow perspective. Narrow perspective means just for giving some kind of employment. Professor Kannan mentioned that there's a lot of scope as far as the educated and unemployed persons are coming. That kind of things we have to think about in a larger perspective of the urbanization. In that context, there's a lot of space for that to developing this. And well visioned all the schemes, but it is poorly implemented, not only in Kerala, all other 9 states, the similar kind of situations. While thinking a scheme for wage employment policymakers may endorse to explore various underlying complex and dynamics issues related to cities underlying, and the dynamics to maximize their benefit and minimize the potential negative externalities. I also would like to say that the point is that we can frame a framework for the national or state wage employment schemes and give that framework to the municipalities and corporations and ask them to prepare a bylaw according to their own situations. Again, I would like to say that there is less wide of the no homogeneities as far as this is concerned, wide range of variations between that. That is what their bylaw will take care of, and the municipalities and corporations will make finally a bylaw for strengthening the wage employment scheme at the cities, at the urban level. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that, and thank you also for introducing this whole idea of how we should introduce an idea of what we think a city should be in our concept when we draft these urban employment guarantee schemes. I just want to say that it's one small point that, again, it doesn't take away from this. But since 22-23, there's been a large increase. There's been a substantial increase in allocation. It was 125 in 22-23, as you pointed out. Since then, it was 150, then 160, and this year it's 180. So just to let you know that there's been a substantial, almost 65 crore increase since 22-23.
I will look into that, but I got that there now. All the municipalities and corporations, the scheme is running in a full steam. That is there, and not from the state government budget, even within own sources.
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying is, but this is only from the urban affairs budget itself is 165. Yeah. That's a minor point. But thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Vinod Abraham.
Thank you, Professor V.K. Ramanathan. It's indeed a privilege to be with Kundu sir and Ravi Srivastava sir, both my teachers, and also presence of Kannan sir and others also over here. Thank you for this opportunity to be here. What I'm going to do is probably repeat many of the things that has already been said because what we call landscape has been covered. But so I thought that let me act the devil also and try to pose some questions which may be kind of maybe important from an analytical point of view, just to raise some certain amount of questions about what is the need for an urban employment program at all. That's the first question I want to ask. The second question I want to ask, is Ayangali aimed at unemployment at all? That is a question that Evijo sir also had raised. Now, the first, taking up these two questions I will raise, and then I'll raise certain issues relating to maybe thinking beyond what Kannan sir has raised about migration, when we need to think beyond the urban, local, and Kerala if we are going to take really urban unemployment seriously. So that's something that we urban issues, related to urban issues. That's the thing. So the first issue is about the need for an urban employment guarantee scheme. Yes, it has been accepted now that there is a program and it has to be there. But the question is this thing that, are we going to tie both ends? We already have a rural employment guarantee scheme running, and the primary purpose of which is actually to reduce migration to one of the primary purposes to reduce migration to the urban area. Now we are going to tie up the urban area also, saying that there will be an urban guarantee scheme over there. So are we going to tie up both these ends of, and are we going to now not look at like a labor market at all? It's not going to be a labor market anymore if you are going to tie up the rural and the urban areas with different forms of guarantee schemes. So how far is it going to be a market? Of course, it is going to put on different, it's going to raise a different issue, but I need to sense this thing that how is it that we are going to implement any urban guarantee scheme? How far it can be successful if you're going to tie it up both from the rural and the urban area? That's one of the issues. The second issue is that, are we saying that we need to have a separate scheme called a urban scheme, which cannot be addressed through a rural employment guarantee scheme? Now, primary assumption is this thing that you are assuming that once the NREGA scheme, when it was implemented, we are assuming that the movement to urban areas would reduce. It's not really that the rural wages would increase. It will also affect the urban areas also. So the urban wages should have increased along with the rural wages, and there should have been a shrinking or tightening of the labor market, both for the urban and the rural, when the NREGs had come in there. Has it occurred? If that has not occurred, what is the promise that urban employment guarantee scheme is giving? That you're bringing in urban employment guarantee scheme, is the idea that employment guarantee scheme is going to tighten the labor market in the urban areas and it is going to increase it? If the rural to urban migration is not, if the NREGs could not do it, what's the guarantee that an urban employment guarantee scheme can do it also? We don't get much evidence about a scheme having improved the employment scenario or wages in the scenarios. That's one related set of issues. So we are assuming here that these urban rural areas are segmented markets. There are no relationship between these two markets, and therefore we need to have separate markets as such. So that's the first issue that I wanted to raise. The second issue that I want to raise is what many of you have already said. It is about the unemployment problem versus the poverty problem. These are two different problems, at least in the context of Kerala. In the rest of the country, there might be some association, what Kundu sir has already said. There is association between unemployment and certain amount, especially in the rural areas. In the context of Kerala, even within the rural areas, the relationship between unemployment, open unemployment, and poverty is not very strong. If you're going to say this thing that unemployment is, by reducing unemployment, you're going to reduce poverty in the state, that is not probably the way to do it at all. But what the problem is, we are addressing two issues here. One is the problem of unemployment, because unemployment numbers look very large. 24% youth unemployment. It looks very large. It looks very difficult. It looks very it looks like a crisis situation. On the other hand, this is not the poor. Of the 24%, there is hardly there is a very small share actually who belongs to the poor. The poor are actually probably the working poor, what Professor Kannan sir has said. They are actually the working poor, and they are actually not unemployed. They are actually working, but their problem is a wage problem. You need to have probably increase the wages as well, not maybe the increase. So does employment guarantee in the urban areas provide you with larger wages? That's one question. Does it also lead you to reducing the problem of unemployment at all? I feel that the unemployment problem remains unresolved. And that's not the, if you are asking me to rank whether the problem of poverty or unemployment in Kerala, which is a more serious problem to be addressed, I would say that the poverty problem is a more serious problem to be addressed rather than the unemployment. Because the unemployment problem is not about not having jobs. It's more about an aspiration question rather than looking at the problem of not being able to find, if at all you had no. So the unemployed are not the people who are not able to find jobs because they don't get any job at all. They are the people who are actually choose to remain outside because they don't get the kind of jobs that they're looking for. There are a certain amount of aspirations that are associated. Yes.
Let's,
Yes.
And we all support that poverty is not a real problem.
No. When I say that, I mean, in terms of numbers, of course, the poverty problem, if you are saying that the poverty rates in Kerala is very less, yes, I would also agree to that. I'm not saying that it is not less. All I'm saying is that if you are going to address which in life, which is a bigger problem, whether it's being poor or having no job is a big problem. I think being poor is a problem, not having the job or not. So here we are going to try to address the problem of having a job or not, but our problem of being poor, that is not being addressed also. That's also the problem. The urban employment guarantee scheme is not able to address the question of poverty. That's a bigger problem. That's also a bigger problem. While we are addressing the problem of employment, which is probably not the biggest problem, we are actually trying to solve that problem by putting money into a scheme where it may not address the poverty issue, which is a more important issue, and that we are not addressing. Because poverty should have been the issue that urban poverty should have been the issue that we should have been worrying. And that issue may not get solved out through an urban employment guarantee scheme. That's what my sense is, because that's a different group at all that we are talking about. That's the second thing. The third issue I thought that I should rake up is this thing. If at all we are going to focus on urban employment as the problem, should this be the approach at all? The urban employment is youth educated, as what sir has said already. Are we discussing about skilling? Are we talking about industry growth in the youth? A completely different route with regard to unemployment problem over there. That's probably not the approach that we need to be taking up over there. And final last point I wanted to raise also is about Kannan sir has said, migrant labor. Now, can we address an urban guarantee program, any urban program, without addressing, and can it be isolated for the people of that state alone? Urbanization is essentially about migration. People are going to come in. You make things better, more people are going to come in. And once you come in, you are actually in a marketplace. It's a marketplace where the new people are going to decide what would be the wages for the rest of the community. Right? You think better, make things better for one small group of people. Another set of people are going to occupy that space. And they are going to decide what would be the lowest wages in that region. So you cannot design a program which is completely isolated for a small group of people and say that migrants can be out of this thing, because that has effects on the economy. The Kerala economy is not simply by saying that the guarantee scheme is there and it is only associated for, so I just need to talk for one more minute. Simply by saying that the program is kind of kept for the people and for Kerala people, and it does not affect the rest of this thing, that may not actually solve the issue of urban migration. I'll stop here. Thank you very much. Again, want to thank Professor Kundu sir and Ravi Srivastava for being here. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Vinod. I'm sure that will come back up in the discussion. Can I request online Professor Shivli Vanuja to speak? Welcome.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Joseph, for inviting me, and it's really a privilege to be here with so many esteemed professors and experts in the field. I will speak briefly based on our experience of doing this fieldwork in Rajasthan on Rajasthan Urban Employment Guarantee Scheme. So I'm working with Professor Amit Pasole in the Center for Sustainable Employment at Azim Premji University, and we did this field work in Rajasthan when the Rajasthan Urban Employment Guarantee Scheme, which was launched in September 2022, and as Professor Srivastava was saying earlier, that it was one of the schemes which has the highest budget in terms of 800 crores being allocated to the scheme. And we wanted to sort of see different aspects of the scheme in terms of what is the uptake of the scheme, who are the people who are choosing to work in the scheme, what is the sort of the number of days they end up working in it, what is the impact of that, let's say, on their income, and things like that. Based on the results which we sort of got from the field survey and the analysis, we find that it is mainly a woman worker dominated scheme, and it is mostly women workers who are choosing to work in the scheme. And as it has been discussed in this panel by a number of panelists already, that the wages which has been fixed for the scheme are generally quite low compared to what the average wages are, especially for men. So depending on the size of the city, so there are variations across. So we did this study across 9 urban local bodies in 6 districts of Rajasthan. And we had we sort of took sample from different size of urban bodies, from municipal corporations to councils to parishad, and you see that there are variations across different kinds of cities in terms of the average wages. And you see that the wages for men are generally from 400 to 700 rupees per day for casual daily work. For women, it is somewhere between 300 to 500 rupees. In Rajasthan, the wages which have been fixed are 259, but because there are variations in terms of what you are actually being paid depending on the quality of work which is being assessed, women on average end up getting something like 200 rupees per day who opted to work in the scheme. And when we looked at PLFS data for Rajasthan for urban areas, we find that this sort of compare with the lowest quartile of women workers in the casual worker category. So sort of what you see is that who is choosing to work in the scheme are female workers from the lowest, comparable to what the what you get from the PLFS in terms of the lowest quartile of casual women workers. So in some way, when we look at then the urban employment guarantee scheme, is it something which can be then, like, of course, there is a question of wages should be increased, and the kind of work which is being done under urban employment guarantee scheme is also something which needs a lot of discussion and improvement. But can this be something which can be treated as an instrument for improving female labor force participation in the urban areas? And one of the other aspect which I would like to point out is that can this be used as something which can in some way reduce the constraints which women face, especially the constraints related to social norms, constraints related to the time which they need to travel to work, along with taking care of the household responsibilities, along with taking care of the children? Can this be something which they might prefer because it provides employment, let's say, nearer to the house? It is something which gives flexibility in terms of the work which they can do along with the housework. And also, finally, the other thing is that the perception of a workplace, does it matter if it is mainly a woman-dominated field? And in Rajasthan, we saw that a lot of people, especially women and their family members, preferred IRGY because they thought that it is especially a woman-dominated workplace. It was perceived as something which is safe to work. And also because it was a government scheme, women as well as family members seems to trust it more. So can the urban employment guarantee scheme this be something which one can think of it as improving or removing some of the social norms related constraints, leading to more female working in the urban areas, and also leading to more income in their hands, maybe more financial autonomy, and also the sort of the networks and other things which they will get if they get out of the house and work. Lastly, when we see the set of women who are opting to work here, you see that there are sort of broadly three sets. One who were not working earlier but decided to work in IRGY. Second, who were doing some sort of home-based piece rate of work like BD making and things, and they decided to complement that work with IRGY for earning additional income. And the third is those who substituted some sort of casual work for this, but that was the small number. And in one area, especially in Sri Ganganagar district, what we found is that that there are some women who are, I know that there was discussion of seasonality, and I was just thinking that in what we find in particular in one district in Rajasthan is that women are using this as something to earn extra income before Diwali or before festival. So in that particular period in September, October, you see a higher sort of uptake of the urban employment guarantee scheme. So I know that I mostly talked from our experience from Rajasthan, and it was a good opportunity to learn from others about the Kerala situation. But reading about the studies which have been done in Kerala, I thought that there are, if I may comment, that there are some similarities, especially the women taking up this job and maybe preferring it. Can one think of it as an maybe an instrument for increasing female labor force participation? And I will end with that. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Tanuja. Thank you for that. What I'm going to suggest now is that we keep some time for discussion. Anyone can come in. Please limit your input to about 2 to 3 minutes. No, the speakers will come back. We'll come back to you. One round to the speaker. One round to the speakers at the end. But before that, the audience, if as I said, I request that you keep it short and to the point here. So
I'm afraid I can be short and give me a few minutes. Thank you. I'm grateful to Professor Joseph for this wonderful opportunity to be a participant in this discussion. And I equally thank all the eminent participants for their short reflections on a burning issue that only indicates underlying silent social revolution in the country. And I'm happy that I've got a chance to listen to two of my eminent teachers, Professor Srivastav and Professor Kundu. And now I have two things. One, a comment and a question. The comment, I mean, what we understand, what comes out clearly from the overall discussion is that there is a need for national level employment guarantee act on the lines of MGNREGA. So some of us, use the word scheme. It's not a scheme. So I understand that we are going to press for a national level act. If we are going to press for a national level act, how are we going to assume that, the act is passed in the parliament and we are going to implement it? So there's a problem here in the implementation. Look at the way MGNREGA has been implemented in the last several years. Of course, despite all the implementation, it has assured the job guarantee. As Professor Srivastav rightly said, it stabilized the employment rate in the country. So having said, my comment is, look at the way MG and REJ is implemented. They're implemented through institutions of decentralization, that means the panchayats. Okay, the panchayats are already overburdened with their own responsibilities. They're supposed to implement 29 subjects clearly defined in the 11th schedule of the constitution. So, but now we are going to have, but then, so recently Vinod and I, did the field work, and in the field work, I mean, the study on MG and REJ, the assessment of the implementation of MG and REJ in 4 southern states, we clearly understood that the panchayats were not able to implement the act. So for various reasons, Kerala is a different case. So what I'm trying to say, in case we are going to,
Sorry.
sorry, for the national level, just 1 minute, sir, sorry, national level act, how are we going to implement it? I strongly feel that we must have a separate and legally established body that can implement the national level act, which I'm sure would ensure job guarantee at the upper level. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, I have a small suggestion in the sense that aggregate averages are often misleading. Total unemployment rate is a good number, but then any scheme should disintegrate into different, what kind of unemployment it is, and who are the people, and what kind of schemes would benefit them. Fortunately, we perhaps do not have a kind of a labor market study for Kerala. I have never come across a labor market study indicating what is the demand for different skills, or what is demand for unemployment, what are the people who are employing them, and how much is the demand, how much is generated. In fact, we actually from Laurie Baker Center, we did a small study on the construction workers. We found the institutions are turning out so many people, but the employment opportunities are not coping with that kind of a thing. What is the kind of skill we need? What is the kind of, you are turning out engineers, but not the carpenters and masons. So these kinds of employment market studies would be useful for different sectors, and also aggregates have to be bifurcated into what kind of people they are and what should be suitable to them, and who are going to implement. The capability of the implementing agency also needs to be taken into. That is one point which is being mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the first efforts at studying, skill requirements, it's now slowly starting through industries and ADISC and others. But anyway, anybody else? Who's next?
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for the provocative discussions and insightful points that you have raised. From the whole lot of discussion, whatever happened here, one point is very clear, that a redesign or a rethinking of this kind of a program is imperative at this juncture. So when we, in the process of this redesign or rethinking, one important aspect is the fiscal design. So the financing mechanism of this kind of a program. So
thank you.
currently the states, currently the states are bearing the responsibility, and if the center has to pitch in, through what all routes it has to be pitched in, and then given the constraints in the municipal finances, so how effectively we can empower the local local body structures for an effective implementation and financing of this kind of a project. And second question is regarding the discussion of integrating urban employment guarantee scheme with the public service delivery. So it is basically, we are having a lot of challenge with respect to short-term wage program versus long-term planning. So how are we going to overcome that one? Thank you.
Very relevant questions. Thank you. Very relevant. Yeah, please.
So it is after hearing all these discussions, what I understand is that solving the unemployment issue through a unemployment guarantee scheme cannot be done, because of this way of development which we are unemployment guarantee scheme. I'm little nervous because
No, go ahead. Yeah, babe.
I'm little nervous because whole lot of experts are.
Yeah, you're
there.
doing.
Okay, I'm really sorry.
That's
And
just a step
also,
of the-
what should be our priority at this juncture? Because the public investment is coming down, disinvestment process is going on. And in the last few days, we can see that there is an outflow of FDI, and the public investment is also coming down. So in this juncture, government should like focus more on to create organized labor, or just this wage like wage labor right now. And also what I want to point out is that while we are talking about the outlays, all the wage rate kind of things, what the constraint a state government is facing, and like in a neoliberal like world, the state governments especially are constrained by the impositions by the central government. So I find very interesting when Jiju sir is talking, like, can we construct this urban unemployment program as a strategy to overcome the flexibility, overcome the inflexibility in the CSS schemes? That's my second question.
Thank you. Thank you. Please. You want to come here? Come down here.
So you have spoken about the expansion of the areas of urban, like the rural areas are turning out to be suburbans and then turning out to be the urban areas. So the definition of urban area, or the mode of urban area itself, is changing over the time. And again, if you take the case of employment situation in the urban area, what happens in the major states, like if it's the case of Chennai, if it's the case of Tamil Nadu or Maharashtra or Bangalore, that most of those urban employees are people who are actually migrating from the rural areas where they are deprived of better employment opportunity. So since the definition, or the span, the territorial span of urban area itself is expanding over time, and the nature of migration is also influencing the demand supply pressures on the urban employment levels. So how to make a particular scheme that is sustaining itself, like to capture the dynamics of migration as well as the expansion of the urban area over the time. That's.
Thank you. I'm going to allow one or two more before we get back to the speakers. Anybody online who'd like to say something? Anyone else? I saw one hand here earlier. Somebody else had raised a hand here. No? Are we done from nobody else? Kiran? Yeah.
I have one broader question. This is regarding the urban labor markets. Now, the urban labor markets are heavily segmented. It's not like the rural labor markets, and they're segmented within the state and also across the states. Like, let's say, Kochi, Trivandrum, and Calicut in Kerala are quite different from the two-tier cities. So within this kind of segmented labor market, the nature of work demand, the people who are going to requiring work would all change. So how do we design a program that would be catering to heterogeneous segments of people with heterogeneous skills? So isn't it going to be a bigger challenge in terms of designing a program for heterogeneous labor markets?
Thank you, Kiran. Shall we? Right. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to request the panel to respond to the comments from the floor and make any final comments that they'd like. May I request about 2.5 minutes each? And when do we're finished by 5:10? 5 plus. Okay. Everyone 2 minutes. 2-3 minutes. Yeah, see, I mean, I'm not going to be. It's whatever you think is necessary, but whatever you think is necessary. No, let's do it reverse, shall we? Now, since you asked, shall we reverse the order? Shall we start with Vanaja? Yeah. Vanaja, would you like?
Yeah, so I just have some thoughts, mostly to the last question which was being asked, that I think one of the things which I feel is that there is a need for, before we start thinking of how to deal with different labor demand, perceptions, a kind of work which is being supplied and which people would like to work in. I think there is a need for a detailed data collection on these different aspects. So one of the things which I feel like, and I think other economists might also feel, that there's not enough data in general to understand urban labor markets. And I agree with this idea that uh, uh, there is I don't know the exact answer, but I feel that there is a need to understand the labor demand, sorry, the demand from workers, what kind of work they would like to do, and then cater to those by creating or providing different kind of work opportunities. But for that, one actually needs to understand, and the urban markets are also changing. Including migrants, including changing norms, including changing education levels. I think as well as the urban. In some sense, the where people are living, where they would like to go to work, and all those. So I think there is a need for better data collection to understand. I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you, Anuja. Manoj?
Yeah, I mean, I don't, I mean, I'll just respond to maybe one or two questions. With regard to migration, I think so. I had kind of touched upon those issues also, saying that urban program it cannot be designed without without thinking about taking into consideration migration question also. So that's whatever the scales of migration. I mean, it can be large city, small city, wherever there is going to be a flow of people, and you need to address that particular. You have to consider that in any scheme that is aimed at improving employment conditions. But I want to stress on this thing that I mean, the problem that Kerala has today is regarding youth unemployment is going to be the larger problem for all India soon. It's not going to be a Kerala-centric problem. Over the years, it is going to become an all India problem. And are we going to address this particular problem? Are we going to address the youth employment or youth unemployment problem as the problem of poverty or the problem of social security requirement? These are two different problems, I think. So we need to address. Unemployment has its own consequences, all these things, but that the relationship between poverty and unemployment is becoming separated over time, and we need to be conscious about this thing. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. I have actually 2 points to highlight. Number one, the scheme or act, whatever may be, it should be framed in a very larger perspective. Perspective which I mean to construct a city, construct the space, and based on the right to city, a movement and kind of approach. It can be used for constructing a city, a kind of a level place, as far as all the human beings can live there. In that kind of a framework, that should be the aim. Apart from the understanding is that there, the employment generation is there, but at the same time, not only the manual laborers, all the educated, unemployed, youth can be employed by taking in the larger context of perspective of that. What should be the city? That kind of things there. That should be there, the core point, not the narrow perspective of this, a larger, very larger perspective. What is happening, the national and international movements are concerned, or this aspect has to be properly conceptualized. See, internalized in that context, there's a space for that. Number two, see, this can be used as a strategy for strengthening the urban governance in this country. So my point is that somebody mentioned that the planning board has to take it as a challenge to show that this is the way. That is what my point is, that to construct a kind of a framework, only that. and give to the municipalities. I would like to say that there, see, I'm coming from the municipal area of Kottayam. See, Kottayam entire problem is entirely different from another municipality or another corporation or another city in Kerala is concerned, the India is concerned. Highly heterogeneous kind of things there. So the point is that they ask the municipalities to frame the bylaws. You take the case of in Kerala, all the municipalities and corporations, they framed beautiful bylaws for solid waste management and plastic waste management as far as the municipalities are concerned in this country. No, not only, see, so again, my point is that there, not only the Kerala case, I have seen that there, I have the copy of the bylaws, more than 100 municipalities and corporations in the country, not only in Kerala. This is, wait, this is what is happening. So my point is that there, give a space to them to prepare the bylaw for a wage employment scheme at the national level. Our municipalities and corporations, with the kind of participation, with the kind of political will, they will come up that. No doubt at all. What you mentioned about that there, as far as the Panchayat is concerned, again, I'm not talking about the Kerala situation. I'm talking about the all India situation, what happened. The MGNREJ has not overloaded the Panchayat, but it really empowered the Panchayat to taking different kind of activities. All right. I can quote number of examples from different states. This is what is happening. So MGNREJ has used as a powerful tool, number of Panchayats for empowering them. I can tell you one case, only 1 minute. You see, I have seen that the number of Panchayat, Grama Panchayat, under MGNREJ, they constructed beautiful ponds. Beneficiaries came to the Panchayat, said that there we have already constructed the ponds. If we get some kind of a saplings, we can convert into fish ponds. So far that state is concerned, the fisheries has not transformed the Panchayat, but because of these, as used as a tool for strengthening and different kind. These are examples. So my point is that there, you should take it as a model. Definitely results will change, come up that there, and this can be used for strengthening the urban governance in this country. Thank you.
Thank you. I can see that both of you have a lot to discuss after the meeting as well. Shall we go on to Dr. Jiju?
No, a quick question, sir. My question is, why these local government institutions are used to used for implementation of the centrally sponsored schemes, whereas they have their own constitutionally defined responsibility.
That is
mentioning. That's the point.
Yes, that's an enormous question, and perhaps not quite the subject matter of today, but it's a very interesting question.
But then pressing for a nation.
Dr. Jiju.
So in fact, when you scale this program at the national level, the first and foremost prerequisite would be to have a source of funds which can ensure seamless flow of funds. We have recently seen that even in MGNREGs, the allocation has been consistently going down for various reasons. I don't think it is because the rural employment opportunities have improved, must be having some other reasons for that matter. In Kerala, when you come to the Urban Employment Guarantee Program, the issue that we have faced is the government has not been able to provide funds properly at required intervals. And this has forced many of the local governments to make use of their own funds, which they do not like ultimately. And many state urban local governments have decided not to take this up because of this issue. And that is a field reality that we have realized after going through the experiences of many of the local governments across the state.
Should we come back to urban?
Urban, I'm talking about the urban local bodies. I'm talking about the urban local bodies only. So they hesitate to take this program. Our municipalities and corporations do not want to take this program because they have to find money from their own sources to fiscal constraint. Absolutely a fiscal constraint. So this we have to realize. And the statistics show that this scheme has been utilized. Many people have benefited. Almost about 41 lakh man days have been created. And also every year we try to find out what would be the target fixed by the local governments and the urban local governments, and they give accordingly money. So money is the only constraint. That is one thing. And secondly, the heterogeneity which has been pointed out right now, And this heterogeneity is taken care of with respect to the kind of job descriptions included in the jobs envisaged in the Yangali Employment Guarantee Program. Almost every sector is touched upon. Maybe some special sectors could be added. That is something which can be done later on. And another thing is regarding the social security scheme. Social security has been embedded into this program, even though it has not been made functional. There is a Welfare Fund Act which has been enacted by the Kerala State Legislative Assembly for the beneficiaries of the Urban Rural Employment Guarantee Program. And just like what we have in MGNRGs in Kerala, there is a institutional mechanism where social security of the beneficiaries are also ensured. So I think all these possibilities are there, and those possibilities could be integrated into the national design as well. So that is what we have observed.
Yeah, you're referring to the Welfare Fund Act, no? Of 2021. Yeah. Thank you. A.V. Jose, not Professor.
Let me say, I'll just touch on the points raised by Vinod, Kannan, and also Kiran and Ritvik and all of them, but it's mainly concerned. Vinod, I'm inclined to agree with you that poverty is more pressing concern than unemployment, because I believe you are talking about a relative sense of deprivation. That is not having enough income to deal with the requirements of the day. That's the situation faced by a lot of women workers in Kerala. And what we are doing essentially through our employment program, insofar as I understand, are creating supplementary sources of income for them, not taking care of their entire requirements, not even trying to tell them that you are from now onwards employed. They are being provided with supplementary assistance. They are being, and that's the main thrust of our schemes. But that does not mean we should consider them as mere dole distribution programs. There must be some way of transcending beyond and turning them into asset creation programs. People raised a lot of questions about governance, how to ensure people's participation in the design of schemes wherein sufficient allocations are made for materials in addition to labor, which will take care of strengthening the rural assets and eventually the long-term development program. Kannan's issue that jobs have got to be created, remunerative jobs, and a whole lot of activities now being done by local self-government institutions can be, especially in the services domain, can be turned into regular jobs for which you can create a cadre of people, both in rural and urban areas, who can be drawn in for delivering those activities. That is something which we can seriously consider about, because we're not doing it so far. We are sort of giving it to gig workers, we are giving it to part-time workers, we are giving it to migrant workers, we are doing it to a whole lot of people without taking into account the number of proper jobs that can be created with such allocations, and the existing labor force can be utilized. Kannan's point about wages, that's a major conundrum. We are not able to have a solution. A lot of our supplementary employment creation program, income creation programs addressed to the women are essentially because of the inordinately low level of wages facing women workers. The fact of the matter is, the moment they offer their services in the labor market for wage employment, the wages will fall down. And this is something which Professor Raj in his earlier scheme pointed out. I'm not going into that, but I think one has got to do a much better job in ensuring jobs availed by women are much better paid, and that they're being drawn into the labor market as equal partners. This again calls for a lot of concerted planning, thinking, and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Kannan?
Okay. Well, I will be selective First, Kiran, who is the organizer of this seminar. What is this, Kiran? Segmentation is not the urban phenomenon. Segmentation is intrinsic to the Indian labor market. The fundamental segmentations are gender, social. You can superimpose on it the rural-urban segmentation. But what I find now is all India or Kerala, there's another segmentation which is not an inherited characteristics, unlike gender and social, is now education. There's a clear divide in our labor market between those people who are less educated, less than secondary. That's the threshold I have taken in all my work, and more than that. That is quite pronounced in Kerala. If I can give you, one example with the younger generation, 20 to 39 years of age, for women below secondary, those who are out of work and out of education, that means basically underutilization of labor, is less than 5 lakh people. Those who are secondary and above, 24 lakhs. So practically the problem of underutilization of labor, the subset of which is unemployment because seeking work, is an educated unemployment problem of women in Kerala, if you are Kerala specific issue. So any attempt to increase the workforce participation of women in Kerala has to be centered around this large segment of educated but unemployed or sitting or underutilized. So to that extent, an urban unemployment program designed specifically to unskilled manual work will have only limited impact. As far as men are concerned, so long as your administered wage, as in NREG, is less than the market wage, you won't get a single male labor in Kerala to do unskilled manual work. And that's for sure. So the wage question manifests in two ways. One is the lack of attraction for male labor. Secondly, for women, there is a small segment of less educated women without work. And even for that, there is a reservation wage, especially for little more educated women. Why are they sitting so-called idle? Because the reservation price is higher than what the market is offering. And you also find increasingly women are pulling away from casual labor market in Kerala. More also in all India phenomenon, they prefer more the regular category. If you distribute the women workers, now the share increases in the regular category and self-employed category, and there's a sharp fall in the casual labor category. So durable employment is another dimension. Vinod's statement, which is more important, poverty or unemployment. If you are Kerala specific, I would say the problem of employment, lack of gainful employment is the challenge, not the poverty challenge. If you take it in the comparable sense for international or national consumer expenditure or deprivational indicators, Kerala's incidence is so low. Multidimensional deprivation is less than 1%. Although I don't believe that exactly 1%, because it's out of 10 indicators, you take 3 and all that. We did an exercise, myself and Dr. Ravindran. We up the educational threshold to at least 1 secondary pass in the family, plus a number of other indicators, so multidimensional. We got, if you take the bottom 50% of the population, the Kudumbashree households which we survived, 15% is the incidence of deprivation. By hiking the educational threshold to 10 years of successful education, which means around 7.5% for the whole population. So absolute poverty is, of course, relative poverty is related to inequality, which is another set of issues. But absolute poverty is not the most important problem in Kerala, but lack of gainful employment for women, because the men have escaped to other countries. It's not a closed economy, not only other states, other countries also. So the challenge of employment in this particular state, the challenge of utilizing the educated labor power of our young women. Full stop.
Thanks very much. With Ravi.
Thanks. The first, I'm very briefly touch on a couple of issues. The first issue already, you've touched and also Karan has touched, but Vinod, you spoke about it. Actually, when we think of the working poor, you think of a trinity of issues: low productivity, insufficient work, insufficient wages. And at least two of these must be in existence. But if you increase the amount of work or and hence wages applicable to that amount of work, you're going to definitely influence the poverty levels. Income poverty, the working poor will definitely be affected. It can also have a ratchet effect. The question of wages, of course, has been made a very complicated issue. There have been 3 committees on the national floor of wages. None of the recommendations have been accepted.
Yeah.
There were 3 committees set up by the Ministry of Rural Development on NREGA wages. None of the recommendations has been accepted. So, we can speak about that at great length. But I'm saying work does matter. Employment does matter at any existing wage level. Even though the wage levels are low, it is important to have a scheme of this kind, which is a guaranteed rights-based scheme. That's the first thing I would like to say. Secondly, I said this in the beginning, but since many people have also spoken about it, we have limited experience of urban guarantee schemes, but there is also not enough learning from them. We need to know more about institutional design. We need to know about the design of the programs. And I think the first step for this, I'm sure the planning board might like to reflect on it, is to learn a little more about the Ayankali scheme, where has it worked, by south town size and all that, and if possible, actually sponsor a study across some of the states. Ayankali, maybe Odisha or Tamil Nadu and Rajasthan, and to see really what has worked, in what context it has worked, how different institutional models contributed to it. Because the UNDP study was just a secondary review. It frankly told us nothing. So we need something much more than that. On the point of labor market segmentation and how this affects the design, look, within the broad context, and this also affects, the point you made, the design of these programs should be able to influence both inclusive urbanization and also formalization. That should be part of the design of these programs, right? And within this context, the program should be broad enough to encapsulate different designs for different labor market segments. So, for example, NCOS in 2009, and Karan referred to it, had given a design of a scheme called employment promotion and skill, the employment assurance and skill promotion in its report. And that was designed to integrate people in the labor market through skill creation, through modular skill training and skill creation, right? And formalize them in the labor market. So it was intended for people with below secondary level, youth with below secondary levels of education. So what I mean is that you can have a broader, and several programs, actually Ayankali also conceptually involves training. So does the Odisha program. So you can have different program designs within the broader program, which can cater to different segments of the program and be gender sensitive at the same time.
Thank you. Dr. Kundu.
Thanks. I don't want to get into this discussion on the point that Vinod raised and everybody commented. I only want to say that if you simply take a statistical exercise of taking some indicators of rural development and relate it with unemployment rate and poverty rate, you find a straightforward, in the context of rural, it is a negative relationship. In general, take it. Of course, there are specificities and the explanations will be different. But urban, it doesn't get. I think Kiran did mention there is complexities. Now, there are situations where urban unemployment is very high, poverty is very high because of high level of urban development. Take some indicators of urban development. But it can be also high because of low level of urban development, right? So it is exploitation and non-exploitation, both can create high level of poverty and unemployment. And so at the other point that I think Ravi was mentioning, that in the rural areas, the seasonality factor is very much there in unemployment. But in the urban areas, you do find, if you take 4 from the PLFS, the 4 quarters, you do find
that unemployment rate don't vary that much. And that's the reason why perhaps rural unemployment rate is considered to be much more serious. But I must say I came with two questions in my mind, and I didn't get a very clear answer. On the other hand, I must say my level of anxiety on these questions have slightly gone up. First question is, in South Africa, in the constitution, we have right to housing, we have right to employment. Does it result in better labor outcome? That's an issue. I did mention that in case of Kerala, if you take some indicators of right to work, you find certainly it performed better. Right to work would mean eligibility for everyone, constitutional guarantee, governance system to be in place. But outcome that comes in terms of total unemployment rate, in terms of the well-being of the workers, is it ensured by right to employment, right to housing? I must tell you, South Africa is one of the worst situations as far as housing is concerned. Even unemployment rate, because of all kinds of other factors. So just guaranteeing work is not enough for a desirable labor outcome. I must tell you, I looked at not only that unemployment rate is pretty high and poverty is low, but that's true. But recently, not recently, about a couple of years ago, I did an India discrimination report. And Kerala emerges as one of the worst discrimination in terms of gender inequality. You know why? This Okaka blinder model says that discrimination is there when people are not being paid according to their endowments. And endowments of women in Kerala is much higher. So obviously the discrimination works out to very high. So I'm simply asking this question, specifically to you, sir. Is there a need for looking at right to work, employment guarantee as one set of issues of governance, management, equality? As it happens in many states, there is a discrimination based on religion, caste. That doesn't exist in Kerala. But does it necessarily result in desirable labor outcome? That depends on organization of labor. There are many other access to employment. The law and order situation in South Africa, the employment guarantee doesn't mean anything. There are all kinds of other problems. I'm asking at a policy level, is it important to look at these two things separately? Because they don't seem to be going together. That's my submission. Number two. No, I'm talking about the institutional guarantee of work and outcome in terms of labor, whether labor is benefited. Second point, just 1 more minute I want to say.
Better and the actual.
Basically, I said the Amartya Sen says, of course, there is no right to employment in India with 7%, 6% unemployment rate in urban areas. There is no right to employment, but there is a meta right. You create a meta right that, yes, legally, constitutionally, governance-wise, everybody is equal. But that does not necessarily result in desirable labor outcome. That is my first concern. And second concern is, Kerala does much better in terms of employment guarantee, in terms of right to work, because, this Ankali program is a wage employment program, number one. And wage employment program really guarantees, because if self-employment program, that person will get the employment will depend on whether the loan is reaching, loan plus education is there. Also, there are some institutional support. And I looked at, National Urban Livelihood Program, NULM, and you find, and you do find that there are deficits coming because urban local bodies in different states are not functioning properly. Kerala is a very different case. There are 3 or 4 states which are doing miserably because the urban local bodies are not functional. So wage employment is a much safer way of giving guarantee. But the sustainability issue, what happens once wage employment you give and next year it doesn't work if you don't give the funding. So taking that into consideration, considering the fact that in the Kerala system, your local bodies are very functional, community level participation is there. Should we say that self-employment, your analysis of self-employment data perhaps shows that it can be a better way of guaranteeing in the long run than that wage employment? That was my second question, that does Kerala tell us that self-employment program with a proper institutional arrangement can be a better long-term guarantee of employment than wage employment? Wage employment directly, of course, is the better way of guarantee. But self-employment generation with the institutional support that Kerala model is projecting, should that be considered as an alternative? Thank you very much.
Thank you. That's very interesting. We've actually exceeded our time, but thank you very much. I've really learned a lot, and I'm struggling to still to consolidate all the lessons in my mind. But clearly, we have a long way to go from here in rethinking the design of this program, in terms of convergence, in terms of the coverage of the people that that the scheme is for. It is no longer a scheme only for manual work, for unskilled manual workers. We must reach out to a much larger set of people, as Ravi and others pointed out. We have to look at we have to take into account the skill sets that exist, that we need to find out more about, and deal with the question of wages. We also require much more participatory formulation of the register of projects and of project selection, which even in Kerala we need this, particularly in the urban. I'm also interested. I'm not suggesting that any of the particular formulations that, with apologies, I agree with, but I'm interested in Professor Joseph's point that we must look at it in the context of an urban policy framework and a philosophy of urbanization, particularly in a state like Kerala. We have to ground this in that in such a framework. All of these, as Dr. Ashwati said, all of this, of course, tends to hit the rocks of finance, and it's something we continually struggle with. The question of participatory responding to participatory demands and formulations, but how do you do that in the situation of not only insufficient finance, but Ritvik raises the question of not being able to use finance in a way that the people patently want you to use it in. Because every year you get requests. The final plan that is discussed has come from, in some way, through a democratic process, and all of these have then to be readjusted to the structure of centrally sponsored schemes and so on. I believe that in response to what you say, we'd be able to create a much more imaginative and just looking at the suggestions in this room today, and a scheme for urban employment, if we were able to do it from scratch and on our own, not without any financial constraint, but without the kinds of financial constraints we have today. Let me not go further into this. I'd be very happy if we continued this discussion on the urban employment, and also and the general point that you don't only deal with employment and poverty through employment guarantee schemes of this sort, particularly in a state like Kerala, where we now have this huge input into our labor force coming from outside, and where the path of development, I think, has to be constantly rethought in order to be able to establish ourselves not only on the path of, to consolidate the human development gains we've made, but to be able to catapult ourselves into some kind of path of growth. These are questions for another time. Thank you very much. It's been very useful for me, and I'd be very happy to come back to discuss them. Can I ask Kiran to, and once more, let me thank the speakers very warmly, and much gratitude. Everyone stuck to the time, and we were able to cover a lot of ground because everyone had a chance to speak. Thank you.
Thank you,
Kiran.
Chair.
Kiran.
We had a great afternoon and filled with insightful thoughts, diverse perspectives, and I'm sure we all learned a lot. It's a privilege for me to offer a vote of thanks on behalf of GIFT. First and foremost, I would like to thank Professor V.K. Ramachandran for kindly accepting our invitation to be with us and chairing this session. And we understand how difficult it is to chair a session among the panel of experts. And you've managed the session quite well within the time. I would like to begin by thanking our eminent experts who have taken time to join us all the way from Delhi, Professor Amitabh Kundu and Professor Ravi Srivatsava. It's an absolute honor to listen to you, sir. And I would like to thank Professor Amitabh Kundu for bringing the issue of urban development and urban unemployment, and also bringing the issue of meta right in the context of urban employment guarantee schemes. Thank you so much, sir. We learned a lot. And I would like to thank Professor Ravi Srivatsava. Sir, thank you for pointing out the challenge of underemployment and also suggesting some of the ways in which urban employment guarantee scheme could benefit and also be inclusive in the years to come by better designing it. I would like to thank Professor K.P. Kannam for accepting our invitation and very clearly pointing out the problem of wage rates in urban employment guarantee schemes, and also making a case for durable employment through your insightful thoughts. I would like to thank Professor A.V. Jose for critical observations and also for making a particular issue of highlighting the underutilization of resources or underutilization of fund allocation for the Kerala Ayyankali Urban Employment Guarantee Scheme. I would like to thank Professor Jiju P. Alex, who shared the challenges of implementing this program. And we cannot have a better person to hear from, to hear the challenges that have been faced while implementing this problem. Thank you, sir, for pointing out all the challenges. And I would like to thank Professor Jose Chathukulam. We learned a lot by reading your article in EPW and also for creating a policy framework for better implementation of this particular scheme in future. And I would like to thank Professor Vinod Abraham for asking this question of whether we need an urban employment guarantee scheme as such, and also contrasting it with the urban poverty challenge. And so thank you for your insights. And last but not the least, I would like to thank Shuli Vanaja for accepting our invitation. I would have loved to have you here in person, but thank you again for joining us online and sharing your experience of working with Rajasthan government and how Rajasthan implemented the urban employment guarantee scheme, and especially the point of how it helped women to be part of the labor force. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Last but not the least, I would like to thank our director for his constant support and also for encouraging us to have a roundtable on this topic. Yeah, we should be thanking because it's all his support and leadership. I would like to thank my colleagues, Dr. Ashwati Rachel Varghese and Dr. Geeta Rani, who have helped in organizing this event. I also would like to thank our seminar committee and the IT team, Mr. Abhilash and Mr. Varun, Ms. Frinda, for helping us organize the event. And I note the presence of Dr. G. Ravindran and also a representative from the ICSR, Sri Mahesh Madhukar. Thank you all for joining, and I would like to especially thank all the participants joined here today, both online and offline, and also for the interventions that you have made. And we had a very rich, clear discussion, and we also understand that this is not enough. This is maybe the first step in this direction to have a more effective, for marching towards more effective urban employment guarantee scheme design. And we look forward to your continuous support and participation. Thank you once again and have a nice evening. We have a nice tea waiting outside.
Yeah. This. Okay, please join for a cup of tea over up there.